can you give me an example of some material or some topic that might have come up that upset someone so much that they had to like walk out?
I could talk, I have like a story I always go to that makes me uncomfortable every single time, and it's me. So yeah, so I guess it requires reading a myth. So do you know the myth of Circe?
Oh yeah, the it was the goddess who held Odysseus.
Yes, so she's basically a temptress archetype, right?
Yeah.
So let me read the myth. Odysseus and his men land on the island of Aea, home of the goddess and sorceress Circe, whose home is encircled by strangely docile lions. She invites Odysseus's men to a meal of honey, cheese, and wine, which she has laced with a magical potion. And on eating the meal, Odysseus's men turn into pigs. So I used this in the book to explain how, say, attraction can take a group off task. And I'm basically the main protagonist here, fortunately or unfortunately. Yeah. So I was at a conference, and we're at this conference for about 4 days already of like 2 weeks. And 4 days into the conference, there's a specific event that starts called an intergroup event. And you're asked to organize yourselves into groups based on specific themes. So I think I went ahead and tried to organize a group. It didn't go well. And I just noticed that there was this one woman who was constantly sort of piquing my attention throughout the conferences. And I noticed her from a previous conference. And these sort of same dynamics of being very suggestive and very sexual in her speech and her undertones, and she complimented my pectoral muscles and all this kind of stuff. And I just I remembered that, and then I joined this group that she puts together, not really like thinking about that clearly at the time, but on reflection, which I'll get to later. So I joined this group, and I sort of start to realize that, oh, right, that's actually why I joined the group. Just this sort of base instinct. It wasn't really out of like an agency or, a purpose other than that. And I remember sort of getting like quite annoyed and like shameful, right? So then I sort of go in on myself, which is a pattern that I have. I kind of withdraw, and the energy is just sucked out of this group. It's as if a black hole where I am sitting, and it just gets so intense that they're asking me to like speak up, like what's wrong with you, and I end up just leaving the group, and I just doing that for the evening, and I come back the next day, and not knowing if anything was going to change or what was wrong. I was determined to try and make something else happen. So things are moving along nicely. We sit down into the session, and the same thing happens again. Stuckness. It's like waving through like honey or something, right? And then eventually I'm sort of sick of this, I'm sort of in on myself, and I asked the group to help me point out like what's going on here. And the specific woman in the group, she's pretty good in this work. Like she's a lot of experience. She said, "You're jealous of the dynamic between me and this person here. Like, it's like sort of almost unreciprocated attraction on some level. And you're jealous of this." And I was like, wow, is that actually what was happening? And I remember seeing interactions outside of the group. Then I was like, yeah, that's actually what's happening here. Like, I'm not the apple of her eye. I'm not the center of attention of the group or something. And it just sort of like a pressure valve was released, and everything started to work in the group again. It sort of blew my mind. And just back to the myth. So when Odysseus goes to rescue his men, the messenger god Hermes tells Odysseus to eat the molly herb to protect himself from Circe's allure, and then lunge at her when she tries to strike him with his sword. So Odysseus follows Hermes' instruction, and Circe immediately changes to friendly and helpful, eventually becoming his lover. So the molly herb throughout this old literature is generally associated with sort of a coming to consciousness, like throughout like Stoics and Neoplatonists and Christians. And I guess there's something there about coming to consciousness of my sort of unrequited envy or unrequited attraction, that causing envy, that sticking the group, and using this myth to try and paint that.
What's cool about it too is there's just, it's not, we see jealousy in groups all the time, but most of the time it's unconscious, and it just like a profound effect that even just a little bit of a shift of bringing that material up into the conscious can have with somebody who's even a little bit curious about it, right? Like, so it down. You said just an immediate shift in the group energy when you were able to kind of acknowledge that, right?